Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you our second game of the week. And it takes us out to Stillwater, Oklahoma, as number 17, Iowa State, will be taking on the 6th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. And you know, the crazy thing to me is that this is a top 20 showdown, yet it feels like one of the more underrated games going into Week 8. It doesn't feel like people are talking enough about this Big 12 showdown, because this is huge. This game right here is going to go down as one of the biggest games within the Big 12 Conference in 2020. And here's why, guys. The Big 12, as we know, has been crazy this season. Preseason, everybody thought Oklahoma would win the conference again. Texas was going to be solid. The runner-up, Baylor, maybe they would be a contender, and maybe they still could be. But right now, only 3 teams remain undefeated in conference play within the Big 12. That is Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. Kansas State will probably remain undefeated in conference play as they take on Kansas this weekend. Not too worried about that game. One of these 2 teams here is going to lose, which means the winner is going to be up there at the top as one of the 2 lone undefeated teams within the conference. This is huge. And Oklahoma State really is the Big 12's best chance of getting a team into the college football playoff this season. They're 6th in the country right now. If they run the table, they will get in. So huge for many, many reasons. Huge for Big 12 title berths. Huge for a college football playoff berth for the Big 12. So we're going to break down everything you need to know about this game. The offense, the defense, the keys, and who we have winning between the Cyclones and the Cowboys on Saturday afternoon. When you look at a little bit of history between the Cyclones and the Cowboys, it's been a little lopsided. Oklahoma State has really dominated this series for about the past decade or so. They've won 7 of the last 8 meetings against Iowa State. The Cyclones are getting really dang close. They're getting so close, and you wonder, is this year they're going to break through? Because all 5 of the past meetings between these 2 teams has been decided by 1 possession. And that includes Oklahoma State's 7-point victory in Ames just last season, which is actually a little bit of an upset. So, last 5 games decided by 1 possession. I would expect a similar outcome on Saturday. Also, when you look at this game, Oklahoma State, they're at home. They are favored by 3.5 points. Let me tell you, that half point could really get you in this game. That spread brought to you by betnow.eu. Make sure to check out everything down in the description below, but check out their link. If you use our promo code GRIDIRON over there, you'll get access to this spread, countless other spreads. You get a 100% sign-up bonus with a $1,000 cash bonus. I'm not joking about that, as long as you use our promo code GRIDIRON. And BetNow, we've enjoyed working with them. We've loved working with them. That's where I go to place all my bets. I know a lot of people that do the same. So if you are a better college football, NFL, MLB with those World Series going on, that is the place for you. And you can also sign up for our expert picks, which gives you access to all of our spread picks, and you can use those over on BetNow, and I guarantee you're going to win some money. So Oklahoma State, 3.5-point favorites. Watch out for that half point, considering how close this series has been in recent years. So let's take a look at both sides of the ball here for both teams. And like we always do, let's start with the visiting team. Let's start with Iowa State on offense. Obviously my favorite side of the ball, and the side of the ball is going to play such a huge role in this game because both defenses are very, very solid. We will talk about them in a second. Iowa State's offense, when you watched them in their season opener against Louisiana, it practically looked non-existent. It was pitiful. Brock Purdy looked horrible. Well, ever since that game against Louisiana, this Iowa State offense has improved. They are improving every single week. And after putting up just 14 points against Louisiana, in their past 3 games, they've scored at least 31 points. They scored 31 points in their last game against Texas Tech. They scored 37 points both against Oklahoma and TCU. So this offense finally found their identity. They finally picked up the pieces, put it all together, and they're looking like one of the better offenses within the conference, if you were to ask me. They're averaging 29.1 points per game. They're led by 2 guys, plain and simple. The first is Brock Purdy, the quarterback. He's averaging 235 passing yards per game. He has 912 yards on the season and 4 touchdowns. Those aren't spectacular stats. Those maybe aren't the stats that we were expecting or hoping for back in the preseason when we thought Purdy was going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. And personally, I would still put him up there. Out of the 10 quarterbacks within the conference, he is certainly in my top half. But Purdy is really, in my opinion, improving along with the offense every single week. And we've seen that these past few weeks, especially against Oklahoma and Texas Tech. The biggest surprise for the Cyclones offense to me, though, has been their running game. They're averaging 179.8 rushing yards per game. So a very balanced offense here. And I think everybody has to be surprised and happy if you're an Iowa State fan with the play from Breece Hall, the running back. 531 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns this season. He's averaging 5.7 yards per carry. And, we knew Breece Hall was good. We knew we had the type of talent and the ability to play well in the backfield for Iowa State. But I don't think anyone saw him playing this well within the first 4 games for the Cyclones. He has been the workhorse for this offense, especially against Oklahoma, especially against TCU, the first game after that Louisiana loss. So Breece Hall going to be maybe the X factor here on offense for Iowa State. If not him, you might look at a guy like Charlie Kohler, the tight end, who's going to have a big game alongside Brock Purdy if they want to go on the road and defeat the Cowboys. When you look at Oklahoma State offensively, we know Mike Gundy always has good offenses. We've seen that for years now since he has been in Stillwater. But we've got a question going into Saturday, and that is who is going to play quarterback for Oklahoma State? Because if you remember, their star dual threat QB, Spencer Sanders, went down with an injury in that Week 1 game against Tulsa. He has not returned since then. But it should be noted that Oklahoma State, they've played a handful of games this year. They played 3 total games. In the 2 games following that, they started Shane Illingworth, who's done well. 483 yards, 3 touchdowns. All things considered, he's gone in, he's done his job, he's led Oklahoma State to victories. The Cowboys haven't played, though, in 3 weeks. They have not played a game since October 3rd. That is plenty of time for Sanders to get healthy. He was actually probably healthy enough to have played in that game against Kansas, but Gundy held him out. So Illingworth is healthy. Sanders is more likely healthy. Who gets the nod on Saturday? Or will it be both quarterbacks? Will you see Mike Gundy choose a split time, maybe alternating drives, alternating halves? Who knows? That's something that Iowa State's defense has to be prepared for, and that's something that to me is a little concerning for this Oklahoma State offense. It's great that you have 2 capable quarterbacks that can go in there and lead your team to a possible victory, but they're not the same. Some teams are able to work with 2 quarterbacks and alternate them because they're just about the same quarterback across the board. Illingworth and Sanders are not. Sanders certainly a little bit more dual threat. Illingworth, not nearly as much. So who is going to be quarterback for the Cowboys? My gut says that Gundy will end up playing both throughout this game. He might end up settling on one midway through or after a few drives, but you will see both quarterbacks, I think, on Saturday afternoon. We do know, though, that outside of the quarterbacks, that Oklahoma State has one of the best running backs in the country. Chuba Hubbard, I mean, come on, guys. Rushed for over 2,000 yards in 2019. Hasn't had nearly as great of a start to the year as people thought. Only 339 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he has eclipsed 100 rushing yards in each of his last 2 games. And that's going to be interesting to see if he can do that again here on Saturday, again, against a very good Iowa State defense that we'll talk about here in one moment. So you've got 2 great quarterbacks that can fill that void. You've got Chuba Hubbard, one of the best running backs in the country. And then you've got Tylan Wallace. So we got the big 3 for Oklahoma State. Tylan Wallace, one of the best wide receivers within the Big 12. 19 receptions so far this year for 325 yards. This is an offense, guys, that is high scoring, averaging 30 points per game, and like Iowa State, is very balanced. 213 rushing yards per game, very impressive mark. 193.3 passing yards per game. So a little less than 20-yard difference there in terms of their rushing and their passing. Both teams very balanced, which means the defenses are going to have to find a way to take one of those the options away, the passing game or the running game. The defenses are going to have to find a way to take one of them away to make their opponent one-dimensional if either team wants to go out there and win this game. All said and done on offense, I think the most impressive stat for both teams is their rushing game. I think that's undisputed. Almost 180 for Iowa State, 213 for Oklahoma State. That number is so key because each of these two teams has great rushing defenses. You start with the Cyclones here. They're allowing less than 100 rushing yards per game through 4 games. 97.3 rushing yards per game that the Cyclones are allowing. Now, overall, the defense as a whole, still a little shaky. They're allowing 27.5 points per game. They're allowing 266.3 passing yards per game. And so that's one of those things where, again, the quarterback situation for Oklahoma State is going to be so critical because Iowa State's secondary has been a little lackluster. Hasn't been nearly as good as we thought it was going to be. So Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, they've got to put the quarterback in there that can take advantage of that secondary. A guy that can get the ball out to Tylan Wallace and these Oklahoma State wide receivers. Because if Chuba Hubbard can't rush very much against this Cyclones defense, you've got to have a quarterback under center that can make those plays. So to me, the rushing defense, great for the Cyclones. The passing defense, a little bit of a concern. Really, that falls on Oklahoma State now. If Iowa State doesn't correct that and improve the passing defense, it's up to Oklahoma State to try to take advantage of it. The Cowboys, on the other hand, they are very similar to Iowa State when it comes to the rushing defense. They're a little bit better, allowing just 93.7 rushing yards per game. So again, under 100, and you wonder, is Breece Hall going to be able to find any sort of success? He really has not been shut down this season. I mean, over 500 yards in just 4 games so far. Is this going to be the game where he hits a roadblock and is unable to get anything going against this Cowboys front 7? Many people are crediting this defense at Oklahoma State, though, to be the best defense that Mike Gundy has ever had in Stillwater. They're allowing just 9 points per game. They're allowing just 274.3 total yards per game. And I think, to me, if you're any defense, if you're allowing less than 300 yards per game combined, I think you're doing a really good job. And Oklahoma State is certainly covering that. The thing that a lot of people have to keep in mind, though, is why I don't want to take anything away from the Cowboys. 9 points per game through 3 games is very, very impressive. But let's look at who they've played. Tulsa, West Virginia, and Kansas. Not necessarily any offenses there that are going to knock your socks off, that are going to blow you away and give your defense a big scare. Not nearly at all. And West Virginia, I would think, probably gave them the toughest fight. They scored the most points, 13 points on the Cowboys, even though Oklahoma State won by 14 in that game. So their 3 opponents that they faced so far haven't been the most challenging. Iowa State, by far, going to be the most difficult opponent they faced. By far, going to be the best offense they have faced in 2020. Is this team up to the challenge, and will they be prepared, again, having 3 weeks of rest coming into this game? Remember, they have not played since October 3rd. So those are some major questions to ask from the Oklahoma State defense. Statistically, they're very good. We'll really get a chance to see how good they are in their first legit test of the season. So what are the keys for this game for Iowa State and Oklahoma State? Again, a crucial Big 12 matchup for both of these programs. I give you a key right now that goes for both teams. We'll talk one for Iowa State, one for Oklahoma State, but one that applies to both is they've got to air out the ball if they want to win. And I think that is fairly evident after we talked about each of these teams' rushing defenses. Because I'm not dogging on Oklahoma State's defense, but I wasn't trying to dog them at all. I do legitimately believe that their rushing defense is good. I believe that is a statistic that has not been skewed by the 3 games that they have played. So neither team, I think, is going to have much success rushing the ball, even though they have great running backs in Breece Hall and Chuba Hubbard. So you've got to throw the ball here. And I lean more, for me, this is more of a key for Iowa State than it is Oklahoma State. Because if I had to pick a running back to overcome the challenges in front of him, to overcome the solid rushing defenses, it would be Chuba Hubbard. He's a guy that could get stuffed 2, 3, 4 times in a row, and then boom, he's going to break off a 75-yarder. That's how good this guy is. So I lean more towards Iowa State. More of a key for them is airing out the ball. But the same can be applied for the Cowboys. Which quarterback is going to step up and make the plays if Hubbard isn't able to get much going? Air it out. That's how you win this game. You've got to challenge these secondaries, obviously each of which I think is the weakness for both teams. A key for Iowa State here is, on top of airing it out, on top of throwing the ball a lot and efficiently with Brock Purdy, Iowa State has to find a way to force some turnovers here. And this sticks on the defensive side here. The Cyclones have been horrible so far in 2020 of forcing turnovers. They've played 4 games. They have forced 3 turnovers. That's it. Sure, they're 3-1, so I guess, hey, if you can't force any turnovers, but you're still getting the win, to each their own. Like that works. But it's not going to last long in the Big 12, especially with very difficult opponents coming up. Still got to face Oklahoma State. Still got to play Kansas State. Baylor still on as well. So all those things combined, Iowa State has to find a way to force some turnovers, because that's how you win on the road. Just ask Oklahoma State. They forced 3 interceptions off of Brock Purdy last year in Ames, one of which ended up being the game-winning touchdown. They returned that interception for a touchdown, returned it for 6. So Iowa State, force some turnovers and take care of the ball themselves. They cannot have a repeat of what happened last year. Brock Purdy takes care of the football in 2019. The Cyclones beat the Cowboys. No doubt in my mind. Oklahoma State, they're key. Maybe it's cliche, maybe not. You can't overdo it with Chuba Hubbard. And this kind of goes back to that first key we were talking about in terms of airing the ball out. You've got to throw. And with Chuba, you see a lot of guys out there now with such great running backs, you try to feed him the ball as much as possible, hoping eventually they're going to break out a big run. Well, against this Iowa State front 7, against this defensive line, against this rushing defense, maybe he doesn't do that. Maybe he's unable to do that. So don't continue to be a broken record and give the ball to Chuba Hubbard when he's only picking up a handful of yards. 2, 3, tackle for a loss, whatever. If it's not working with Chuba, leave it alone and air it out with Illingworth or Sanders. Because if you force yourself into a 2nd and long, a 3rd and long, or something like that, because you're running the ball too much, I don't think you're going to be able to win this game. I genuinely do not. Especially, no offense, if Illingworth is your quarterback. Again, he's played well in relief in the Tulsa game, led the team to victory against West Virginia and Kansas. But Kansas, that would have been a victory if a middle schooler had been playing football, have been playing quarterback for the Cowboys. West Virginia, I credit a lot of that to Chuba Hubbard and the defense. Again, Iowa State is the best team that Oklahoma State will have faced this season. You cannot afford to put yourself in difficult situations like that because of poor play calling. So what is going to happen on Saturday afternoon? At 2:30 kickoff on Fox, number 17, number 6, 2 undefeated teams within the Big 12 conference play. Oklahoma State, the lone undefeated team in the Big 12, perhaps the Big 12's best chance of getting a team into the college football playoff. What's going to happen? I would tell you that I would expect another exciting one-possession game. So go ahead and bump it up to 6 straight games that will have been decided by one possession between Iowa State and the Cowboys. But keeping with the trends, I am going with Oklahoma State in this one, where they will now have won 8 of the last 9 against the Cyclones. I genuinely believe that this Oklahoma State offense has the talent necessary to win this game. We criticized maybe some play calling. One of our keys was really just don't beat yourself up. Don't put yourself in bad situations. I don't think they do that, because I do think Spencer Sanders does play in this game. Illingworth might see the field as well, but if Sanders comes in and plays a good amount of this game, Oklahoma State is going to be rolling on offense, especially in that passing game. Iowa State secondary, it scares me a little bit. Oklahoma State, to me, has an offensive edge. The defense is going to be a key in this one. Again, we criticize the opponents they've played, but they have had 3 weeks off. That can be a blessing because you've had time to prepare, or a curse because you've had time to cool off. I'm going to go with the first one, saying it's a little bit of a blessing. Mike Gundy has his team ready to go. They have slight home field advantage, a hostile environment for the Cyclones. Not going to be nearly as tough as it would be under normal circumstances, but it's still going to be tough nonetheless. And I think the Cowboys and Mike Gundy squeak out a victory here at home. They remain the Big 12's lone undefeated team. They remain a top 10 team going into the back half of their schedule Only a handful of games remaining, and they are certainly looking like the number one team in the Big 12, almost a lot for the Big 12 championship, and maybe college football playoff contenders as well. Iowa State, with this loss, their title hopes of the Big 12 title are not over, but of course, the room for error is very, very small. So we are in store for a fantastic matchup on Saturday afternoon. Again, I think it's one of the most underrated games. People are not talking about this game much, and they need to. They need to, because this is huge. The Big 12 has been one of the most exciting, entertaining, and wild conferences in all of college football this season, and you can expect all those things to transpire on Saturday afternoon in Stillwater. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in that description below. If you love college football, this is the place for you. Everything down in the description is for you. Our newsletter on our website, our expert picks on our website. Sign up for both of those. Use our promo code GRIDIRON on BetNow. Sign up for our Patreon account for exclusive analysis. Non-stop, year-round, even when in the off-season. We're going to have it over there on Patreon, so make sure to sign up for that. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your college football Saturday, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.